I'm excited for those live streaming. Ofer is the head of developer relations at Vectara. We're going to have a conversation about Ofer and Vectara.
Okay.
First, tell us about you.
Well, I live here in Silicon Valley.
Cool.
I've been sort of in the machine learning space before it was called AI, so for the last maybe 20, 25 years.
Before it was cool.
And all the way from naive Bayes, if anybody knows what that is, up to today's LLMs. I got to use LLMs actually pretty early on, around 2018, 2019, when GPT just turned 2, sort of like. So
how did you hear about it first, and how did you get onboarded into GPT-2?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's I had a person who used to work for me at a previous company in my team, and he then moved on from that company to work at OpenAI early on too. And so he knew about it, and one day he said, "You should look at this thing. It's really cool. It's really gonna change the world." And so little did I know, I just sort of decided to take a look at it and work with it. Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit about kind of your experience with GPT-2, and I think the context window was 512, not 512,000, 512 tokens.
512 tokens.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was like a big deal at the time. So using it was really interesting. Because you had these really big limitations, like what can you do with that? It also wasn't that powerful. But one of the things that we did back in 2019 in my company was trying to extend that to, believe it or not, 8,000, which was like a lot more, like 16 times more. And that was a big technical achievement, yeah.
And tell us about, so this company you started, tell us a little bit about that company. Why did you start that company, and tell us about the company?
So the company was called Syntegra. It was a healthcare tech company. Cool. And essentially what it did, it was taking real healthcare patient data and creating synthetic data out of that. So that synthetic data is then no longer a real patient data and could be used to do modeling and research in healthcare. So it was very good cause for that.
Were you modeling specific diseases, modeling specific health issues? What were you modeling in particular?
Depending on the customer use case. But for example, imagine like an oncology data set that lives somewhere being collected by these organizations that track these things, and they get patients coming in every 3 months to track their progress, and super valuable data for research. It was kind of locked in because of good reasons. Like HIPAA is very, very a good reason to not expose patients' data 100%, but it blocked research. So being able to create statistically similar data sets and then share those for research purposes and really do a lot of good stuff with that is really valuable. In fact, this was the time of COVID, right? And we worked with the NIH to sort of model the COVID patient data.
Oh, wow.
It was interesting, yeah.
Wow, really good work. You then moved on to Vectara.
Yeah.
Maybe first you can share for the audience, what is Vectara? What does Vectara do?
So we're a company about 4 years old, founded by some people from Google. Our CEO was one of the founders of Cloudera. And we do essentially AI agents and RAG as a service.
Okay.
So when you think about building a RAG system and now AI agents, there's a lot of infrastructure in play. You have to have your vector search, you have to have hybrid search, embedding models, a lot of different pieces to it, and a lot of infrastructure. And so, yeah, you can build it yourself, but when you go to, and we work primarily with bigger companies, in a Fortune 1000, and those companies, they want something that is more, they don't have to manage all this infrastructure. So we have a stack with an API on top of it for developers. So essentially you end up having all the functionality you want that matters for these kind of systems, but you don't have to manage the infrastructure. You don't care which vector database it is. You don't care you care. You can change the embedding model. You can pick, but you don't have to manage it, scale it up and down, put security in there, put data governance. All that stuff is managed for you.
I see.
And it works. Also, of course, you can send all data to us, which is a SaaS model, but also it works on your own VPC and hyperscaler, and on-prem. We have customers they get hardware from us with all the system installed on that.
Cool. Yeah. So we've got a bunch of developers who are on live stream. As they're building applications, it sounds like you're kind of helping them with all these kind of components they have to put together, making it very easy for them.
Yes.
Maybe you could kind of walk us through like a use case that you've seen that you were like, oh my goodness, like the developer used Vectara to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. So generally it makes everything much easier because, as I said, we don't have to become an expert and choose a vector database. There's probably 50 in the market. Like, which do I choose? Which honestly, it doesn't matter. What you care about as a developer is I want to ingest my data that I want to build my RAG or agent on top of into the system, so it's searchable and can be used in the context that needs to be used. So once you ingest the data, we'll take care of like chunking and table processing and image processing, every video, whatever you have to do to make that work. We'll put it into our internal system.
Cool.
And again, you can control how you do that in the API. And then when you run a query, you integrate it with your use case. So it could be a chatbot is still very popular, maybe document generation, a bunch of other use cases like that. You just run the API. You don't have to worry about, oh, my vector database is too small, it wouldn't scale, it'll be slow or something like this. This is our job. That's why you would pay us eventually as a big company, right?
Very cool. We talked a little bit before this about hallucinations and the hallucinations that you dealt with GPT-2. And you also gave a talk about why do LLMs hallucinate. So maybe you can talk, first of all, simple terms, like what causes hallucinations in large language models? And then how does RAG kind of counteract that?
Sure. So I would first say like hallucinations is arguably still the number one hurdle for companies to adopt LLM technologies in general, whether it's agents or RAG.
Yeah.
So I want to differentiate two types of hallucinations. One I'll call raw hallucination, right? Which is you give the LLM some question and it hallucinates a response without RAG, right?
Yep.
And that's usually because, again, LLMs are still token completion systems. They predict the next token. And a lot of times they just make a mistake. They complete without having the knowledge. For example, if the LLM was trained up until late 2024 and ask a question of something that happened in 2025, that's a decent use case of this happening. There's a lot of other reasons, like the prompt is not good enough, whatever. There's a lot of reasons they would hallucinate, but generally they're not trained to give you the right answer. They're trained to complete the next token.
Yep.
And that's really the core issue. One thing I like to say about this too, to maybe give another angle at it, is if you think about LLMs, they're trained on maybe hundreds of, trillions of tokens, let's say, or now maybe 1 trillion, a year ago or so, right? Lots of data, but then the amount of parameters is in the billions. So there's got to be some loss, right, in there. And we know that compression from like information theory is like 1 to 8. You can do lossless compression. So this is in 1,000 or 100x. So there's got to be some loss of information. So that's why the main LLMs hallucinate. Now, the idea of RAG is really brilliant in the sense that, no, I'm going to use the LLM not just based on its kind of outside world knowledge, but really, I'm going to say, here's a retrieval system. I'm first going to take all the internal data, the data you pointed at. I'm going to bring the right facts in. I'm going to tell the LLM, please generate, but use these facts. Those are the source of truth, right? And that's why it hallucinates a lot less, because you actually tell it what to do and what to rely on. Now, assuming that your source of truth is correct, so you need a good retrieval system to do that, but yes.
And if you need a good retrieval system, that's where Vectara comes in, is that right?
That's one of the big pieces we do, we do retrieval both with vector and keyword search and combination together. We make this whole system works. Re-ranking is a big deal that people sometimes forget. Retrieval is not just a vector search. Re-rankers are really important to get the right approaches. And we also
can you talk a little bit about re-ranking then, just for the audience?
Yeah, re-ranking is, so when you think about retrieval, we think about it as a pipeline of different things. And the first step is, let's say you have 1 million documents. Okay. You couldn't do a re-ranker on those. A ranker essentially takes the documents and figures out which ones are most relevant. And re-ranking is a very expensive operation. Like it takes a while for each unique document or chunk. So you can't do this on 1 million documents. So this is the only reason this is why we have vector search, because you can do embedding models which are actually much faster to use on a large scale. And then you get your top 100 documents or 200 documents, and then you use ranking just on that. And you really focus on the interesting. I should mention I did do a course with deep learning AI,
Great.
which I know you compare about embedding models that explains all of that too, if you're interested.
Cool. Okay, so plug. So deep learning,
Plug,
deep
exactly.
learning AI. Watch the course with Ofer.
Yeah.
And what's the title of the course?
Embedding models. I should know this, but embedding models from production or something like this. You'll find it.
Look it up.
You look it up. So that's good.
Great.
I was very happy to do that. I want to say one more thing about hallucination is one of the things that we're kind of known for at Vectara is this hallucination detection and correction, hallucination mitigation. So we have still by far the #1 hallucination detection model on Hugging Face.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Downloaded more than 5 million times.
Wow.
At this point. And a recent thing we added is hallucination correction.
Okay.
So when you know your response from RAG is hallucinated, what do you want to do? You want to either tell the user, oh, sorry, it's hallucinated, but the better thing would be to correct it.
Yeah, here's the answer.
So you have a specialized model for that, which is really cool.
That's very cool. I imagine that hallucinations and getting it right, making sure the language model is returning the right answer, is a particularly large, important deal for large corporations. And you work at, developers large and small, but specifically for big companies. The transition from RAG from a proof of concept to production at a large company. What do you recommend? What are some pitfalls? What do you recommend developers look for in that transition?
Great question. In fact, I am in the last piece of writing a book about this.
Great, another plug.
By the way,
Can you show the title
it's
of the
not
book?
available
Okay,
yet.
yeah.
It's with O'Reilly. It's called Hands-on RAG in Production. So it targets exactly this problem. So, I'm saying this it's fresh in my head, right?
Yeah.
I'm writing about this every day. But to answer your question more directly, there's a lot of challenges, right? Like putting together a chatbot with my 1 PDF or 10 PDFs is kind of easy.
Yep.
But I think when you go to enterprise scale, the main things that you want to think about is, one, how does it scale? And scalability becomes a problem, not just from a systems perspective. I need more machines and I need to have fault tolerance and things like this.
Yeah.
But also from the RAG platform perspective. For example, we talk about retrieval, right?
Yep.
Retrieval starts to degrade as you have more documents available. Just a simple exercise is, if you want to take your top 20 chunks of data or documents into your LLM in your RAG pipeline, there's more competition for what will be in those top 20.
Totally.
So by definition, if your RAG retrieval is not that great, you'll see more degradation in performance.
Yep.
The other issue is, how do you measure RAG performance anyway?
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
It's a big problem. How do you do that? How do you continuously measure that as you add more data sources, as new data comes in, you keep and maintain the same quality, right?
So how do you measure RAG performance?
So yet another plug,
Yeah.
but this is actually something really interesting. I'm really excited about it. We launched this thing called Open RAG Eval.
Okay, cool.
About 2-3 months ago.
Cool.
So I want to talk about RAG Eval. It's something that exists in the market for a while. Okay. And I encourage everybody to look at other things too. But one of the challenges we've looked at this space for a while. And RAG evaluation means okay, I got a set of questions. Let's say your top 1,000 questions for your organization that are most important.
Yeah.
And usually what you do is you would use either open source or commercial solution to take these questions, run them through your RAG pipeline, figure out the answers, and figure out if the answers are good or not in some way. So you want to test your retrieval. You also want to test the answer. You want to test for hallucinations, all these things.
Yep.
The problem was you have to write your sort of ground truth answers.
Yep.
And that's really difficult.
Yep.
Even if you're imagine you're a big bank, like a JP Morgan or Citibank or whatever, and you have lots of resources. You can say, I'm going to put 5 people to write these answers every day.
Yeah.
Still, they may not know the answers.
Yeah.
So one of the really, really cool things about Open RAG Eval is it's a project we did in collaboration with University of Waterloo and research they've done to do what I call reference-free RAG evaluation.
Okay.
So in other words, you don't need your golden chunks or your golden answers.
Okay.
It still gives you really good metrics about how to do that.
Huh.
That sounds like magic,
Okay, it does
doesn't
sound
it?
like magic. Maybe I'm asking to reveal some secret sauce.
No, it's not. It's all in
how does
open
it do it?
source.
Okay, so how does it do that? Yeah.
It's not a secret sauce at all. We decided to open source it to the community, and and I encourage everybody to take a look at it. If you like it, please give us a GitHub star. We're trying to spread the word around, and it helps.
Okay.
how does it work? I'll try to do it briefly, and maybe I can share later on some resources about this. But I'll give you an example for retrieval, which is really hard, right?
Yeah.
Who's going to write golden chunks on the retrieval? That's really hard. But there's a metric called umbrella.
Okay.
Okay. What it does is it takes your chunk that came out of the retrieval.
Yeah.
Let's say you take your top 20 chunks you want to do. You take your chunk, and you essentially use LLM as a judge to give you a score between 0 and 3.
Okay.
0 being it's completely irrelevant to the answer. 3 is like it's complete answer to the question, right? So it looks at the chunk and the query, no answer involved.
I see.
Now, you can say, and it's a good prompt, but the trick is like, why would you say that? I mean, anybody can invent a prompt with a scoring system like this. What's the big secret here? The big secret is that the researchers or university or whatever, and again, to give him credit, Jimmy Lin and his team, they're amazing.
Talk for Jimmy.
Yes. But so if you want to work in this research, go talk to him. He's a great advisor, professor for you guys. What it does, they've done research to show that a particular prompt they use in a particular way they created it correlates highly with actual human annotation of the same thing.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Right?
Cool.
So you know that this particular prompt, this particular way, if you use it LM as a judge, I think the correlation numbers are like really high, like 80, 90%. Like it's the correlation coefficients there. So it's really powerful. Not just like anybody can invent it, yes, but go do this research and do a lot of manual analysis, collect a lot of data, and show that. Similarly, there's another thing called auto-nuggetizer, which does this on answers in a little bit different way, but that's the thing. So.
I love the fact that you are taking research and have a practical implementation of the research, and also the fact that you've open sourced this for the entire developer community to use.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Please take a look at it. I love it. It's really, really powerful.
Very cool. We are here at a hackathon. Sorry for those of you who are live streaming who are not here in person, but for those who are kind of online and also those in person, folks have the next 5 hours to build something.
Yeah.
In that short amount of time, especially for developers who are new to RAG, any advice in terms of what they should build like right now, like in the next few hours, versus things that they can worry about and solve for later on?
Well, first of all, I love the idea of the Buildathon because of coding agents. Like I've used them a lot recently, and I feel that's the first and foremost thing is like use those coding agents. They're amazing. Yep. I think Andrew said earlier that move fast and be responsible as opposed to move fast and break things. I like that too. I would say my personal experience is that use them, but be careful. They're not that great yet, to be honest. They make mistakes. Yeah. So kind of the role becomes like watch over them. Generally at Vectara, if you want to use Vectara for building RAG or agents, that's a great thing because again, if you build it yourself, even with a coding engine, you have to know the infrastructure pieces and you have to code them up and build them up, and that's not always easy. But in a 5 hour thing, I mean, it's kind of really hard anyways to do stuff. So the coding engines are amazing. In fact, one of the resources I shared on the Discord server is for today, I actually prepared Claude MD and Gemini MD or whatever, they have these things that you can add. Yep. So I created one for Vectara. You can integrate into your Claude MD that helps Claude, for example, do the right thing from the start. Okay. Right? Cool. So you share this on Discord? I shared it on Discord. So look it up. If you're building something with Vectara, you can integrate that piece into your Claude MD, or Gemini if you use that, to just help it make less mistakes, right? Cool. So think about that. I think you could definitely, if it starts making mistakes in any application you develop, think about what mistakes it made and add it to your Claude code. That's a really, really good, helpful thing to do. That's very cool. I think one of the things we heard from the panel earlier today is also asking Claude Code, for example, tell me about the code that you've written. Why are there mistakes in it? And you can learn as a developer 100%. What's happening too. And I also like the idea of unit tests, right? Yep. That was discussed earlier too. I think if you add a unit test for something you want to develop, it's much less likely to make a mistake because it'll run the unit test, it'll check itself. A lot of times it gives you a solution. So it gives you a solution that's like more than what you've asked for, maybe go in a different direction, but if you specify what you need more precisely, it'll do a better job.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Just maybe looking forward, I feel like you've shared a lot of kind of insights and some secrets. To the extent that you can share, what's on the roadmap for Vectara? What are you excited about what Vectara is going to be releasing in the future for the developer community?
Sure, yeah. So we're two things I wanted to mention. One is, of course, AI agents is something that I'm really bullish about. We're all really bullish about it at Vectara. We have a lot of stuff coming in that area, both for developers directly, but one of the interesting things we call the Guardian agent.
Okay, nice.
Which is kind of the same mentality of what we have with hallucination detection and correction, taking that to agents. So agents, I got to be honest with everybody here on the thing. They're wonderful. I've built many of them.
Yeah.
They don't always work correctly the first time. They take a while to figure out. So the demos you see online are great, but they usually took a while to figure out, right?
Yeah.
That's where we are. This will change very rapidly. Mm-hmm. But one of the areas, if you think about failure modes, right? Mm-hmm. They fail in the tools coming directly or from the MCP servers being wrong.
Yep.
Which is where hallucination correction could be applied really well. That's kind of basic. But then the tool calling could be wrong too. It could call the wrong tools. It could plan the wrong plan. Mm-hmm. It can use the wrong arguments with the tools. There's a lot of failure modes where it could go wrong. Mm-hmm. So we're building a mechanism to control that and be able to guard against failure to get to the right answer faster and more reliably.
Cool.
And that's a really, really good thing. The second thing I'm really excited about is we call it enterprise deep research.
Okay, nice.
Right? So deep research, I'm sure everybody knows. If you haven't tried it, I really encourage you to do it. Gemini has a version, ChatGPT has a version, I think Perplexity has a version, maybe Anthropic has a version. Everybody's got a version of that. And usually it's a kind of a meta agent, sort of like goes deeper than just a question and an answer. He goes and researches websites and looks up on the web and tries to give you a more deeply researched sort of answer that's usually longer. Very powerful tool. I use it all the time. If you're not using it, please maximize whatever the vendors allow you to do. It's really, really helpful. Now, the question we ask is like, so how do you do that in an enterprise context where you want to target the enterprise data sources? And it turns out it's not as easy. You can't use the regular Gemini tools, whatever, for at least not now to do that.
Because the regular Gemini tools are outward facing as opposed to inward facing, right?
And think about it also, the planning could be much worse if they don't know anything about your internal data. So we'll build this enterprise deep research, and there's so many interesting use cases. For example, one of my favorites as a developer is like, I've been in many companies and you go in the first day and you have this onboarding week. Okay? Like go learn about everything. I'm sure you've seen that.
Everybody's just super lost the entire time.
And it's like, what do I do? And maybe there's an old document 3 years ago that sort of tells you how to log into systems. But other than that, you're kind of lost. Yeah. And usually the answer is like, well, talk to the previous person who just came in 3 months ago. So imagine now that with enterprise deep research, you can take all the documents of your team from Google Drive and emails and Slack in the last few months and sort of build a kind of dynamically generated onboarding guide that has all the latest information for you, right? That's a really cool use case.
So you do not need to talk to the last guy. You can just talk to the guy right now, actually.
Exactly, the agent, exactly. Yeah. And then the other one, and there's many of them, I can talk for an hour about this, but I just mentioned one more, which is a big pain for big organizations is RFP generation, RFP responses. Yep. So sometimes,
RFP being request for proposals.
Yes, RFP. So your company, your salesperson gets an RFP, and then they go to like ask everybody about what to do with that. Where do I get all these answers? 150 different questions. Yep. And the answers keep changing. Yep. Nobody knows where the answer is held, which document it is, which version. Maybe sometimes I have to ask a person something. So again, this could leverage all of your internal resources that are connected to Vectara already, and you just 20 minutes later you have, I don't think it maybe doesn't do 100% of the questions, but if it does 95% and you ask So you can turn it from weeks and months to a process that takes days or hours sometimes.
Amazing. And knowing RFPs, turning weeks into days or hours is magic.
It gives you a competitive edge, honestly,
sure,
because
yeah.
you can respond to 3 of them and not 1 of them.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
it's a really cool thing.
Super excited about all the things that Vectara is going to launch. Ofer, thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Of course, thank you for having me.
Cool.
Great.
Great.